God is good all the time. Now today, I wanted to show you how I throw together a batch of pancakes using the pulp from the almond milk I made yesterday. So if you haven't seen my how to make nut milks video, it's a super easy process. Go take a look at that. And what you will end up with is some pulp. And you don't throw that away. You want to make the most out of everything. This is how we live a frugal lifestyle, is learning how to make the most of every little part of everything. So I'm going to show you how I do that in making pancakes. Again, you can also use this pulp in making any other kind of quick bread or in cookies, excellent cookies. But today, pancakes. So let's get to that. So what we have here is, here's the almond pulp right here, and you can see it's just, I put it in the refrigerator overnight. It's moist, but it separates really well. And I've got my home milled white wheat flour, whole white wheat flour that I just took out of the freezer. I have some goat milk. I have some homemade pineapple vinegar, avocado oil, baking powder, and some salt. Now, you know, I just realized I'm going to need a little more baking powder than that, because I'm going to end I'm trying to keep this batch kind of small, because typically what I try to do is make the pancakes only for Patrick. I always still end up making too much. So if you're making this for more than 1 or 2 people, you're going to want to double this recipe. And when I make pancakes, I just throw them together. I don't typically measure things out. I go by look and feel. So I'm going to do my best to kind of stick to some sort of measurement here. So I'm going to start with just about a half cup of the nut meal. And then this should be that's a half a tablespoon, or 1.5 teaspoons, however you want to look at it. 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon. Actually, the best way for me to measure, I usually do it in a lid, but that is, right there is about a half a teaspoon. Salt. And one thing I forgot to get out was my fork for mixing. Alright, and then I'm going to use, I'm just making this up as I go, folks, so we'll see how it turns out. I'm going to go ahead and use a half cup of the home milled whole white wheat flour. Put just a little bit more in there. Alright, mix that in good. Set these aside so I know I've already put these in. I might make a quick bread later, like a sweet type bread later today with my homemade blackberry applesauce. Yes, I decided to go ahead and make applesauce because I am getting so many apples, and I already have tons of dehydrated from last year that I never used. So, and then I remembered, oh yes, I can use applesauce for making apple breads. Apple breads are really yummy. And I added some blackberries from our thornless out there. Alright, and then I'm going to put in some milk. I'm going to start with, this is going to change as you go. And you want to start small and see how it, I'm starting with a half cup, and see how it absorbs, your batter absorbs the milk. This is clearly going to need more, but I'm still going to need to add some fat. I'm not measuring, just I'm showing you what I'm doing so you can just kind of watch. I'm going by look and feel, basically. Now, the vinegar is, that's going to add a little more fluffiness to the pancakes. It's going to help it rise a little bit better. Part of that, I believe, is the reaction of the acid to the alkaline, because you've got the baking powder in there. Clearly, this is too thick, but I still have the eggs to go. I know, at any rate, I'm still going to need a little bit more milk. And what I like to do is I get my I like to get my pancake mix made up, the batter made up, and let it, with the vinegar in particular, because basically that's also going to turn that into buttermilk. That's going to help curdle that milk a little bit and set it up. And then just set it aside and let it sit. Now I haven't done this particular thing in a while. Usually I'll just put the eggs right in there. And these are farm fresh eggs that I get from a friend, and I barter for these. Because most of you will know, if you've been watching any of my videos, we do not have our chickens yet. We're in the process of getting the chicken coop ready. So, but if you beat the eggs up really nice, really good, that will also help make your pancakes fluffier. And anytime you're using a heavier flour or adding stuff like the nut meal, you're gonna want to do whatever you can to get those pancakes fluffy, because it'll get heavy. That's the downside to whole wheat flours or whole grain flours and using any kind of nut flour or nut meal. I'm not calling that a nut flour, because it's not dried and it's not very fine. But you can do that too. You can turn that pulp that you got from your nut milk, you can turn it into a flour. Go ahead and keep whipping this up. There's a lot of air in those eggs. And I do prefer, I have an electric mixer, but I use this more than that. In fact, it's very rare I use the electric one, even when we have lots of solar power like we're getting now. I still try to do things by hand as much as possible. I do that because it helps keep me in shape and keeps me used to this process. So if there's ever a time, because we tend to lose power out here quite a bit, and which is part of the reason why we, even if I didn't expect that maybe something big might happen down the road, like a total grid down situation, power-wise, we still lose power quite a bit out here. So it's very handy to have other ways to be able to cook, bake, and just do your day-to-day activities. Making coffee, mixing eggs and stuff. I've done mashed potatoes with this. I've taken egg whites and made a meringue out of this. And anyone who's done any kind of mixing will know that meringue, you have to beat those egg whites for quite a while. But I like it. I'm burning a few extra calories. Now I could get that fluffier or not, but I'm going to go ahead and stop there. And I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to let this sit for a few minutes. My pan's heating up anyway, and we'll see how that looks. It's possible I might want to add a little bit more flour. And the only reason I'm using 2 eggs in this is because I'm using half of the ingredients in here is the nut meal. And it's likely that my pancake batter will not hold together very well. So I'm using an extra egg than I normally would. Typically you're only going to need 1 to 2 eggs even for a full batch. But I'm using 2 eggs in what would be considered a half batch of pancake mix. And I know some people like to make up their own pancake mix and put it in a in a container of some sort. But I make my pancakes different every time. I don't have a set recipe. I just throw it together. Sometimes I'll add, if I've got bananas that are overripe, I'll mash up a banana and stick it in there. We don't usually do the whole fruit thing like blueberries and stuff like that, because I don't know. For some reason, I like blueberry pancakes, but I don't really like chunks of stuff so much in there. One thing that's really good though, that I liked but Patrick didn't like, was the raw cacao nibs. But they are kind of crunchy, so it just depends. I thought it was pretty good, but then again, I don't really eat breakfast, so I was just trying a piece of it. What the raw cacao nut nibs are really good in are your sweet quick breads, like I was talking about, the apple, apple bread or zucchini bread or pumpkin bread, banana bread. Oh man, those cacao nibs are so good in banana bread. So I'm gonna give that a few minutes to set, and then I'm gonna come back after a few minutes. All right, now that I've allowed my pancake batter to sit for a while, I'm finding that, okay, it's a little runnier than I would like it. Like I said, sometimes you never know whenever you're adding a new type of thing, just how it's going to turn out. You need to give it time to soak. Like coconut, if you use coconut flour that's been, it's fully dry coconut flour, you'll get it a good consistency and you'll think it's right, and then all of a sudden it turns to paste. I should have known that this wasn't going to do that, because the nut meal was not dehydrated, it was still moist. But I still like to be sure, because I've made that mistake too many times. So what I need to do now is just add a little more flour and mix it in. And I know that's a long process to go through. It's just, if you're going to use any kind of ingredient you've never used before, it's really best the first time you do it to see how your batter's going to set up before you jump into making those pancakes. Because otherwise it's just going to be way too dry. And we're about in a good consistency. I'll probably still need just a little more flour yet. Yeah, I don't know how many times I've had my pancakes get just too heavy and too thick, because I thought I had it just right, and then whatever I put in there, new different ingredient, absorbed every bit of the moisture, and so then I didn't have a nice batter, because you want it to be somewhat runny, obviously. Now pancakes is something I only make them typically like once every few weeks. It just depends on what's going on. A typical weekend, we don't eat a lot of bread anymore, and I've said that before, so that's one of the reasons why I don't make a lot of pancakes. But I try to keep it mixed up. Usually if we're on the weekends, I'll make Patrick a batch of biscuits and gravy, just one, and then the other breakfasts, he gets 3 days off. Those other breakfasts, I don't have any bread with. It's just bacon and eggs with lots of butter. So I'm thinking that looks like a fairly decent consistency. I could be wrong. I may need to still add more flour, but we'll see how this goes. I've got my cast iron skillet nice and hot and ready for the pancake batter to go on there. Yeah, that's probably pretty good. I still think it could possibly be a little bit thicker, but you just don't want it to get too thick. Now I'm going to go ahead and put that right in the middle. I found it best, and this isn't as hot as I thought it was. I find it best to not try to do 2 or 3 at a time, just to do one right in the smack middle, especially when you're cooking on something like this. And so I'm going to let that cook, and then I'll come back. So there's the first pancake. I just flipped it over, and I guess you didn't need to see me flipping it over. I just forgot to turn the camera on. There's where we're at so far. I'm going to put another one on here pretty quick. Looks like they're turning out pretty good so far. When the master taste tester tries it, I guess we'll find out for sure. Alright, I just buttered that pancake and ready to take it off here. Looks pretty good. So there's the pancakes. They look pretty tasty. I haven't tried them yet. I will make a little one for myself. Be serving this with the beef bacon for my husband and some real organic maple syrup.